Hello everyone, I'm Alex. I'm new to this platform, but I've seen many people sharing their stories here and receiving immense support. I recently had a fallout with my father, and as a result, I'm completely alone as of now. It's not like I was among loved ones before either. However, this time it's official, and why won't it be? After all, my father disowned me in front of everyone. Let me start from the beginning so that you guys can get a better picture. Like any other child, I was blessed to be born to a kind mother and loving father. I guess I was luckier than most, as I was born into a pretty well-to-do family. I was my parents' only child, and they doted on me very much. My father owned a multinational company. However, my mother was its backbone. She supported my father and his business a lot. She worked hard at taking care of the business, making sure that all the employees felt heard and respected. And yet, I never felt like I didn't have my mother by my side. She was magical in her way and made our life blissful. Life was good. Until one day, it was not. It's been 2 years since my mother passed away, and life hasn't been easy, to say the least. Especially the last 6 months. After my mother died, it was as if I somehow lost my father too. He grew distant and was always busy with his work. There came a point where he would not even come home for weeks. I thought my mother's death took a toll on him, but he seems to have forgotten it was difficult for me too. I wished we could be together, become each other's support in such tough times and not grow apart. It was all just my wishful thinking, because before I could realize it, my father had gone so far that he could never return. Someone returned, but it was as if he only looked like my father and wasn't actually him. It was approximately 1.5 years after my mother had died when one day he returned from his business meeting. He wasn't alone. There was a woman and a boy around my age with him. He announced that she was my stepmother and the boy my stepbrother, and that I should take care of them and make sure they were comfortable. You can only imagine my shock. What was going on? My dad remarried? It can't be. I thought he was struggling like I was, unable to accept the loss of my mother. I wanted to ask him a million questions, but no sound came out. So I just left the room. The next morning when I came down for breakfast, my stepmother and stepbrother were already there. They seemed to have already settled in the house and seemed way too comfortable. So I asked my father how they met and how this happened. He said that he met her about 9 months ago, on a business trip. She was the assistant of his business partner and was asked to show him around. He said that they immediately clicked and went further to say that he had never been able to talk to anyone as freely as her. What? What about the wife you had a year and a half ago? I sat there listening to him going on and on about his new wife. Nope, still can't say that without getting disgusted. Anyway, after hearing him speak for 10 minutes straight, I asked him why he didn't tell me. The silence that followed answered my question. He knew I'd not be okay with it, and that's what he mumbled. I don't know what happened, but my voice suddenly became loud and hoarse, and I shouted, "And you are okay with it? You're okay with marrying the first bimbo you could find when it's not even been 2 years since the death of your wife?" I knew I shouldn't have. I barely knew this woman. My mother would have been very mad listening to me being rude to someone, but I didn't care then. How could he? After Mom died, he wasn't even there for me. And I let that slide, thinking he was going through an equally tough time, if not worse. But I was wrong. Instead of being there for his son, he was busy dating the first woman he laid eyes on and playing daddy to her bastard son. Naturally, my father was mad at me for my behavior and asked me to apologize to my stepmother, which I did, but I left the table right after. Our relationship had cracked that day, and it couldn't go back to the way it was. We stopped talking. I mean, we talked here and there, small talk or regarding work, but it wasn't like the conversation as it should be between father and son. Slowly, even though I wasn't okay with it, I started accepting things the way they were. That's when I started noticing the true colors of my stepfamily. At first, it was tiny things like frequently shopping a lot, changing things at home according to their will whenever they want, being rude to the help, etc. Spending money was no big deal. My dad is loaded, and if he's okay with it, I couldn't care less. But changing the setting of our home, my mother's dream house, being rude to the help, the ones hired by my mother and taken care of, was not okay. It seemed like my stepmother really thought of herself as the hostess of the place. Her son was even worse, if possible. He would throw parties for his friends almost every other day, where they would all indulge in all kinds of things. Some of them could even be considered illegal, taking his age into account. All this was, however, never the case in front of my father. In front of him, they were kind, sweet people who could do no wrong. I, on the other hand, was portrayed as a rude boy who doesn't talk to his father, respect his stepmother, or take care of his younger stepbrother. To make everything worse, my stepmother, and especially my stepbrother, left no chance to show my father what an ungrateful child I was and how wonderful and great they were. They always acted like they were a true family and made me feel like a stranger in my own house. For instance, thanks to my stepmother, all the family photos displayed around the house included my stepmother, stepbrother, and my father, while there were hardly any pictures of me and my late mother. On special occasions like birthdays or holidays, I received impersonal or thoughtless gifts from my stepmother and stepbrother, while they lavish each other with expensive presents. Despite that, no matter how genuinely I showed my gratitude, they would often comment on my lack of enthusiasm or appreciation for my father. They didn't stop there. During a family gathering at the house, I overheard my stepmother casually telling the guests about how I had cut off my father and barely acknowledged him and his efforts, and never lifted a finger to help around the house, despite all they had done for me since my mother's passing. Honestly, I would have happily left everything to these greedy, sucking monsters, but my mother had poured her heart and soul into making a family business successful, and this house that we all lived in was her dream house. My father was able to buy it because of my mother's constant support and a lot of effort. Then came the day because of which I found myself sitting here alone in a friend's attic pouring my heart out to strangers on the internet. Our business had recently crossed its profit target, and there was a grand celebration event at our house. A lot of the employees, business partners, major investors, and the media. A lot of people were invited. Everyone was dressed in their fanciest clothes, chatting and laughing, enjoying the lavish arrangements. I stood in the middle of the room, feeling out of place despite my fancy outfit. This wasn't the first lavish event we've ever had. However, something was about to happen, something that made me uneasy. I just wasn't sure what. Call it intuition or gut feeling, but it was there. And then it happened. My father took the stage and addressed all the guests, thanked the employees and investors for their continued support, and then said he had something important to announce. He said to everyone that he would like them to meet his son, the future of his company. He then called my stepbrother to the stage. Yes, the son he was referring to, the one who was supposed to take over his business, his wealth, and the rest of the assets wasn't me, but his bastard son, my stepbrother. Even the guests were so shocked that it took them a moment to regain their composure and applaud. No! Fury boiled up inside me. I couldn't just stand by and let this stranger simply take over all that my mother worked for. My father was too stunned to speak. He didn't want to make a scene, so he tried to joke around, saying he knows I wanted to be the one presenting this to my brother. However, if he thought I was really going to let this one slide, he was wrong. Long story short, I told him that he could not simply give everything to my stepbrother, and that he wasn't even his son. I further said in front of everyone he wouldn't even have his business if it weren't for my mother. I know, wrong move. My father snapped at me. He started humiliating me and my mother. The moment he uttered something about my mother, it turned into a heated argument. One thing led to another, and my father ended up saying that I ended up turning just like my mother, a failure, and that just like her, I didn't deserve to be there. So he took the mic once again and announced how he disowns me, and that from now on he only has one son, Kenneth. I knew there was nothing left to say. I pushed through the crowd, packed my bags, and left. I called a friend from my university and ended up crashing at his place. His place isn't very big. I'm sure you could guess considering I'm living in the attic. However, he was kind enough to say that I stay for as long as I want. But that's the thing. I don't want to stay here while those people ruin my mother's hard work. I won't let it happen, but I just don't know what to do. So if you guys can suggest anything, it'll be highly appreciated. Bye. Comments. Comment 1. I can't imagine how tough it must be for you. Losing your mother and then being treated so unfairly by your own father? Honestly, your stepfamily sounds like greedy people, only there to leech off of your father's wealth. I wonder why he can't see it. You've shown incredible strength by standing up for what's right and refusing to let them take advantage of your mother's legacy. Keep fighting and know that you're not alone. There are people who are rooting for you. I wish you all the strength in the world. Comment 2. Honestly, you sound like you're just playing the victim here. Your father made a choice, and it's not his fault if you can't accept it. You should have been happy for him, that instead of dwelling on the past, he was trying to move forward, like you clearly need to. Maybe if you showed a bit more respect and appreciation, things wouldn't have turned out this way. It's time to stop dwelling on the past and start taking responsibility for your own life. Blaming others for your problems won't get you anywhere. Move on and make something of yourself instead of trying to gain sympathy from everyone on the internet. Update 1. Hello again. It's been more than a week since I last posted. A lot has happened since, but first of all, thank you to all of you who engaged with my post and gave valuable advice. I really appreciate it. And to those who thought I was too selfish and should have been happy for my father, let me tell you, I would have been happy for my father had he not moved on so quickly. My mother and father were married for over 30 years, and it didn't take him more than 6 months to get over her. I would have been happy for him if he had been there for me when I needed him the most, instead of trying to be someone else's father. Anyways, it doesn't matter. I understand everyone is allowed to have an opinion that I can do nothing about. Also, it doesn't matter anymore, because after what he did, I won't forgive him. It took me a long time to get to this decision. Honestly, I didn't want to believe my own father did this to me. I wanted to blame everything on my stepmother and stepbrother, that they must have poisoned his mind. Though this could be true, it was also the truth that my own father publicly disgraced and disowned me. I can't just sit and let everything my mother worked for go to those greedy leeches. So, I'll take back everything that rightfully belongs to me. Anyways, moving ahead. So, apart from publicly humiliating and disowning me, which was, trust me, in all the newspapers I could check, he threatened all of our relatives to not help me out at all or he'd cut them off too. I've been really struggling to make ends meet. I realize I never mentioned this, but I used to work at my family business. Considering what happened last time, I guess it's safe to assume that I'm fired. That's fine with me. Honestly, I wouldn't even go back if I could. The problem is because the news about my father disowning me has gone viral. I'm facing trouble finding a job somewhere else too. No one wants to talk to me, and those who are ready to talk either just want gossip or are competitors looking to uncover internal secrets. I've been helping my friend with his freelance projects and he's sharing a percentage of the pay with me, but considering he's also taken me in, it doesn't feel good to charge him to help. And not to be ungrateful or anything, but this is far from enough. The only good news is that my Nona is coming this weekend. She's my grandmother, my mother's mother to be exact, and loves me a lot. She was of course furious at what happened and wanted me to move in with her in a different city, but I told her that I can't just run away like this. I have to make these people pay, even if I don't know how yet. To this, she was oddly happy and said she knew just the thing that could help me. Meanwhile, she's asked me to find the ex-employees of your company and gave me a list of some of the major shareholders at my father's company. Oddly enough, at the end of the list, there was a name I wasn't familiar with. Sarah, a journalist. My Nona asked me to contact her and meet her if I could, so I complied. I called her and told her who I was and how I got the hang of her number. Believe me when I say this, she was ecstatic and has asked me to meet her as soon as possible. Seeing I have nothing better to do, I'm meeting her tonight after her shift ends. Let's see what Nona is getting at. I'll update you guys. Bye for now. Narrator's opinion. Wow, reading Alex's story is really something else. It's so sad to see him going through such a tough time, especially after losing his mom. I can't imagine how hard it must be for him to feel so alone in his own family. His dad's behavior is just unacceptable, and I totally understand why Alex is feeling so hurt and betrayed. It's inspiring to see him standing up for himself, even when everyone seems to be against him, and the way he's determined to fight back and not let his mother's hard work go to waste. I already absolutely adore Nona. She's like a beacon of hope in the story. I hope she'll be able to help Alex. Update 2. Hello everyone. I know, it's only been 2 days since I last posted, but I have a lot to share and some of you are really invested in this story and wanted to know what happened after I met Sarah. So here you go. I met her outside her workplace and we went to the nearest cafe to grab some food. The girl could eat. Anyways, so she tells me that she's been investigating the Robertson family's shady business dealings for quite some time. She has some inside information, but needs some solid evidence before she can uncover this to the public. She seemed really excited just thinking about how sensational the news would be. But wait a moment, shady business dealings? I told her I didn't think any such thing was going on, and that my mother always made sure that everything was just and fair, to which she replied that it was not my mother. These things started about a little more than a year ago. The company is believed to be involved in many illegal dealings, including money laundering, bribery, and corruption, to secure lucrative contracts and gain favorable treatment from government officials or regulatory agencies and tax evasion. How else do you think the company's profit margin went up by double than what it has in the last decade? What she told me made sense, but I was shocked all the same. I had heard such rumors once, but I ignored them, thinking that it must have been a trick by our competitors to defame us. How could our company be included in such dealings? My mother was really strict regarding this. She would have made less to no profit, but would have never let the business be involved in such activities. Sarah promised me to continue her research and assured me to help me out since I'm Nona's grandson. When I asked her what she meant, she told me that her grandmother and my Nona were best friends, and Nona was like a second grandmother to her, and so she was happy to help. I dropped her at her place and left with my mind buzzing through all sorts of questions. Had my dad really gone so low? Is this why he didn't want me to inherit his business, because he knew, like my mother, I would never approve of such ways? How much more truth was hidden from me? And if all this is true, should I take action against them? The next day, I met all the ex-employees and some investors. They were kind enough to take the time out of their schedule to meet me at such short notice. Due to my mother's kindness and hard work, they all remembered her and felt bad for me, and wanted to help me out in any way they could. Upon talking to them, one thing was clear. Whatever Sarah told me was all true. These were disgruntled former employees who were unfairly dismissed when they protested against the way things were going, and major investors who were either just there because huge sums of money were already invested, or because they remembered how the things were when my mother was alive and were hoping they would go back to that. The best thing that happened was when during the meeting, my Nona arrived. I was so happy to see her. She told me something that made my next step clear and easy. She told me that she was part owner of the company. I was confused at first. I thought my mother was part owner, and after her death it all went to my father. My Nona explained to me that it's true that my mother was part owner of the business, but my mother had already written her will right after the business started booming that 30% of her share will go to Nona and 20% to me. So technically we were part owners of the business. She told me this was her way of making sure that my Nona and I would be taken care of in case something happened to her. She said my father doesn't know about this because she didn't think it would be required considering I'm their only son, everything will naturally go to me, and in time she would have transferred her share to me too, making me the sole owner of the company. However, things went astray, so it came to this. She further mentioned that if we got a few major investors on our side and she collaborates, and once the news about my father's shady dealings is uncovered, I can execute the vote of confidence and have him out of the business. So I formed an alliance with the ex-employees, major investors, my Nona, and Sarah. Together, we will uncover all of the Robertson family's shady business dealings, and I will personally make sure my father and stepfamily pay for what they've done. Let's just hope it goes as planned. Bye. Update 3. Hello again. It's been over 2 months since I last updated. This will be my last update. I almost didn't post. However, since you guys were so engaged, you have the right to know what happened. Right now, I'm writing from my house. Yes, my mother's dream house. I'm living here with Nona and my girlfriend, Sarah. During the time she helped me, we hung out a lot and I started liking her. A month ago, we started dating, and a week ago, I asked her to move in with me. I know things are going fast, but I really like her. She's witty and kind, and she supported me in my darkest time. I asked Nona to move in with us too, since the house is too big for me to live here alone. Fun fact, my Nona introduced us hoping something like this would happen. Well, let's just say she's really happy that her grandson and her best friend's granddaughter are together. I should really tell you guys how I reached this level of peace and happiness in my life. Last time I posted, I told you guys how I made an alliance with the ex-employees and major investors of my father's company, my Nona and Sarah, the journalist. We were determined to uncover the truth about the Robertson family's shady business dealings. However, we knew it wouldn't be easy. First, I talked to former employees who used to work closely with the family. These insiders shared important information about how the company was run and pointed us in the right direction. We also got tips from people who wanted to stay anonymous, like workers inside the company or people who knew the family's business. These tips gave us more clues to follow. We also had the advantage that I myself used to work at the company at a time. However, to find solid evidence, we watched closely what was happening in the company. We kept an eye on important people and what they were doing, trying to catch anything suspicious. Finally, we asked legal experts to look at all the important documents from the company that we could get our hands on. These experts found multiple points in the contracts and agreements that seemed wrong or against the rules. Soon, we were armed with mountains of evidence that were more than enough to shake the foundation of any company. Then it was Sarah's turn. She released all the evidence of the corruption and fraud within the family business since my mother died through the press. This led to criminal investigations and public outrage, making the company face a substantial loss. My father lost his face and shareholders were pressuring him for evidence. Finally, a big meeting of the board of directors was called. Unbeknownst to my father, I came to the meeting. It was the first time we were face to face since that grand event. He lost his temper and shouted, accusing me that it must have been all my doings, and asked the security to throw me out. When no one moved, he got confused. Some of the major investors who aligned with me explained to him the situation. Finally, they told him about our decision to execute a vote of no confidence against him. All the color drained from his face and he looked at me dumbfounded. He tried to reason with me. It's funny how much a person's demeanor can change within moments when he finds himself on the verge of losing everything. Finally, I told him that I wouldn't humiliate him in front of everyone like he did to me. My mother wouldn't have wanted it. I asked him to leave the company and vacate the house within a week with his family. For the rest of the details, my lawyers will directly contact him. That was the last of him I saw. I received multiple calls and texts from my stepmother and stepbrother, but naturally I didn't even bother seeing any of them. 2 days ago, someone told me that my stepmother and stepbrother had left my father alone. I felt pity for him, but couldn't forgive him for what he did. He's been charged with several misdemeanors and is required to pay a lot of compensation for it, so basically he's in debt and is just making ends meet. I, on the other hand, was able to restore the name of the company that my mother poured her heart and soul into, and I'm happy now with the life I have with my Nona and the love of my life. Thank you for reading my story. Your support means a lot. Goodbye. Comments. Comment 1. Alex, man, I gotta say your journey from facing betrayal to reclaiming what's rightfully yours is like something out of a movie. It takes real guts to stand up to your own family, especially when they've done you wrong. I'm happy that you got justice while doing the right thing. Your stepfamily, as expected, was horrible considering how they kicked your father to the curb as soon as he lost everything. I'm sure your father regrets treating you the way he did. Also, I'm really happy to hear about Sarah and you. I wish you both all the love and happiness in the world. Comment 2. Here we go again with Alex and his never-ending sob story. Seriously, get over yourself. You act like you're some kind of tragic hero, but all I see is a spoiled brat who can't handle reality. Your dad made a choice and you didn't like it, so you threw a tantrum like a little kid. Please, grow up and take responsibility for your own life instead of blaming everyone else for your problems. You keep whining about how unfair life is, but you're the one who can't seem to let go of the past. I mean, yeah, it sucks that your dad disowned you, but you need to stop playing the victim and start acting like a man. And what's with all this talk about reclaiming what's rightfully yours? Last time I checked, nobody owed you anything. You need to stop expecting handouts and start earning your keep like the rest of us. But no, you'd rather sit around feeling sorry for yourself and expecting everyone else to fix your problems. Well, newsflash, what you did to your father was horrible. You should be ashamed of yourself. Narrator's opinion. Alex's story is really wholesome. Despite all of the challenges he's faced, he's managed to turn his life around and find happiness again. I admire his determination to uncover the truth about his family's business and hold them accountable for their actions. I love how he didn't give up, even when things got tough, and now he's living in his mom's dream house with his grandma and girlfriend. It's like a real-life fairy tale. It's clear that Alex has come a long way, and I couldn't be happier for him. He's a true inspiration to anyone going through tough times.